Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, Tavern, final recap, final showing. Come check it out. And I had a guy call me the other day, wanted to know kind of what made a good English room, good English tavern. And there's a number of things that if we look at these details and look at some of these elements, especially from this original Rockefeller room. Now, I don't know if you remember, but we bought a Rockefeller library from New York. That was about 1920s. And that was the design impetus that drove everything else. And so this space was a crawl space. And so literally there was this much room, dirt was to here. And so this space got completely excavated, and what was left was some metal poles that you still see some of, right? So there was steel bars holding up the house, steel's construction, and then basically this was gunite. And so behind this wall is like, you know, a stud wall, then gunite, and then our finished wall. So there's a lot of technical stuff that went into this. This is a very, very, very difficult space to make work because there isn't much room, right? The HVAC system, the electrical, the plumbing are hard. Everything's more difficult down here. And so it took longer than it probably should have, but we should have looked at how difficult it was and realized it was going to take a while. But if you look at an English room in our English tavern like this and creating this space, part of what the challenge is lighting, right? Because this is a very dark space because the ceilings are dark, we got beam ceilings, wood on the wall, wood on the floors, and so lighting's a challenge. You'll see right over here with the lighting of that paneling over there is that we're still experimenting with how to light this space with secondary lighting, with other kinds of ways to cast light and to soften the light so it's not too jarring, right? But also to light the space so it's usable. So there's still a few things. I think we're 98% there, but there's some tricks. Now, one of the other things is how do you make a good English paneled wall? And so I had a guy send me some pictures of his, and he had kind of a 3-panel configuration with a raised panel mold. It really gets down into these very fine details like the width of this stile and rail, right? It's about 2 inches. It's not 3 or 4 inches. It doesn't get too heavy. The size of this panel mold, the fact that this lower rail has a bevel on it, which is called a mason's miter, which was practice from stone. It had a great tradition and great history. And so you could peg these joints. The original wasn't pegged, so we didn't peg anything, but it's all these fine little details. And look at the moldings here, and look at this kind of crazy classicism. So remember that the Tudor Jacobean era, which is the 1600s, late 15, early 1600s in England, or that dynasty. And so they were taking the classicism that Inigo Jones had brought back from Italy and were applying those ideals. So the classicism isn't perfect. The ionic column isn't canonical, you know, it isn't textbook, but it has its own charm and its own kind of wonderful feature. The way the carving is done in the frieze there, these brackets that support the cornice, the carving details of this mantel shelf, right? There's these unique and special ways that the English carved and the English decorated. This is called strap work carving, and the carving is very flat. It looks like straps, all right, that were put on top of it. So there's all these wonderful details, all these wonderful things going on here that make this space magical, make it work. Going back to just some of the other details, the size and the scale, not only of the stile and the rail, but of the panel too, right? And so this isn't a 3x3 panel or 2x3 panel. This is probably 12 inches by 16 or 18 inches. And so there's a proportion, there's a scale, there's a size that is important and is part of this tradition. So a little bit of carving, a little bit of classicism, getting the right proportions and scale detail right, really creates a pretty magical space. One of the things that's really great about this space is, hiding the mechanicals and hiding those things. Because of the way this panel wall lays out and because it's kind of dark in here, you really can't see where we've hidden. We've got 4 or 5, hidden doors in there. Here's one of them here. So if we look at opening, you get a sense for one, this kind of hidden door, which is kind of fun. But, there's the mechanical space back there. That wall and the back wall is gun-ited, right? Where we're trying to manage water. You can see the tight plumbing that we've run around the outside wall. So any plumbing that was coming down that was in this space actually had to run around the outside wall. So a challenging space, and you can kind of get a hint of that and see some of that there, but that's really a pretty invisible door, makes this space fun. Let me show you the bar because we did some neat details there. One of the other things about this bar is we wanted a really high gloss finish. We've got a groove that we've cut in here that we have a bar of brass that's going to go in there. So if you're sitting on here, your drink won't slide off. This is the idea. You'll look at the front side of it and you'll see these linen fold panels, also salvaged from another project where we did linen folds and panels above those things so that we would convey and continue to convey this kind of cool space down here. I've got a metal pole right here. And really one of the challenges was we had a structural system, right? The structural beam holding up the house. How do we disguise this? And the one point we were like, well, we'll just make a whole, column that will wrap around it. The problem is the proportions in that would have had to get really big and clunky, and all of a sudden this was growing to 12 or 14 inches instead of 4 inches, and visually it goes away more if it's just painted black. So we're talking about putting sconces on here. This is part of the refining that we're trying to do to figure this out. Again, speaks to how difficult the space is. We've taken antique panels in here, antique glass panels to lighten up this bar area. We got a beer tap in here. We've got a custom sink. So really cool, fun things, but getting that drain out of this house, because it's all concrete in here, and getting it so it drains with the gravity was actually very difficult. So you're seeing some of the complexity, but also some of the fun things that went into making this space work. You see we're still playing with lighting and just kind of how we light some of these features and some of these details, but getting the details right, getting these architectural elements and architectural details right so that it works visually. And so secrets of the good English room. One is using quarter sawn white oak, right? You'll see and you'll notice that the quarter sawn white oak has these flecks and these rays, or what they're called, that give the grain this life. If you try to use plain sawn oak in this situation, it's going to fail. You're going to mess up the look of this thing. So getting quarter sawn and or rift sawn white oak is maybe 80% of getting this detail right. The second piece would be getting the scale of these pieces right? This panel mold, it's only about 5/8 of an inch wide. It's only about 1/2 inch thick. Getting that piece right, the size of the stiles and rails, because all of those things contribute to the proportion and the scale that give it that authenticity. So the scale of this panel compared to the size of the stiles and rails, the size of that panel mold, and you want to create a space that people want to come into. And so the interior designer here, Lee Taylor, is really good at kind of picking out these furniture and these fabrics and making it masculine, making it a fun, awesome space to hang out in. So hope you guys like it. It's been a fun journey, kind of from that early stage when it was just, a crawl space, to when it's just gutted and then just this open, who knows what it's going to be, to what it's finally become. It's a pretty special space. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.